I don't care what month of the year it is, I want to go fly fishing. It could be the middle of the winter, the heat of the summer. All right, that water temperature's gotta be below 68 degrees, but I love to fly fish for any species, especially trout. Now, one of my favorite seasons, come on, it's the fall. I mean, we have changing leaves, everything's starting to cool off. I mean, my wife was born in October. What's not to love about the fall? But don't forget about those fly fishing opportunities, and I'm gonna give you some of my best tips to help you catch more fish this fall. Let's find the honey hole. Now, what do I mean by that? I'm not saying let's go to your favorite pool, put on a bobber, cast that, I don't know, mop fly or Pat's rubber leg along the bottom, catch some fish. No, that's not what I'm talking about. The honey hole is ever changing, especially in the fall. I think about this season kind of like the early spring. What I mean by that is that we have to follow the trout. Get out your handy dandy thermometer. I have a link to one down below in the description. It's probably my favorite thermometer because I can simply hold it up and I will get a temperature of the surface. It's quick, it's down and dirty, but most importantly, you have to track those numbers because the fish are kind of moving with those changing numbers. Think about a typical fall day. We're gonna start off our morning. It's gonna be really cold, really chilly. Water temperatures through the night have kind of dipped. Where are the fish gonna be? Slower moving water. So you're looking for some warmer water in the fall. But now, think about those fall days. What's gonna come out? Come on, you know, the sun enters out. So once the afternoon starts to hit, that water's starting to warm. We're going to have some bugs hatching in the fall. Fish follow those bugs. Where are they gonna be? Closer to the riffles. If you're still fishing those pools, will you catch some fish? Absolutely. But now more fish are going to be kind of moving towards those riffles, moving towards the protein sources. You have to follow the fish. And then evening now in the fall, what happens? Oh, we have those really cool fall nights. But as it starts to decline in temperature, follow those fish back to that slower moving water. So get out your thermometer, constantly take those temperatures of that water, and you'll notice that it does fluctuate throughout the day, into the evening, through the fall. Watch those temperatures, see where the fish are, and use that to your advantage. In the fall, use a stealthy approach. What do I mean by that? Well, there's lots of stuff we can do. Obviously, we can go with some camouflage clothing because as we enter the fall from the late summer, we're going to have still some low flows. Knowing that, I prefer to work downstream to upstream. So I start low and I start working my way upstream. That way the fish are always facing up, they're not gonna see me coming. Next, I'm gonna pair my fishing techniques accordingly. I love to European nymph. What technique am I going to use? Probably one that's gonna involve a micro thin leader. Because I have a micro thin leader, I can stay a little bit further back from the fish and I can cast one or two nymphs a little bit further away. That's gonna benefit me. Are you into strike indicators? That's great, but we don't wanna scare the fish, especially if the water flows are still a little low. Here's another great technique for you. Use something called a dry dropper technique, where we have a leader and coming off the leader is a piece of dropper material. On that dropper material, go with something that's, we'll say, a really heavily CDC fly that's going to float a lot, but that the fish will also eat. Another just sneaky fly that I love to fish in the fall is called an Isonychia comparidon. On some streams, Isonychias appear to hatch almost all summer long, but in really low numbers. But fish get used to seeing them. So throw that Isonychia comparidon as your dry fly in this dry dropper combo, and it's gonna float a heavier nymph underneath. Where is that heavier nymph? Now remember, I talked about my leader. We have our dropper coming off. That's where we're gonna put our dry fly. And then that bottom fly, we call that our point fly. That's where we're gonna fish a nymph. Something with a smaller tungsten bead, something like a 2.3 millimeter, 2.5, or even a 2.8 millimeter bead. Make sure it's not too heavy, that it's constantly pulling down your dry fly. But when you fish this dry dropper combo, you have more of a stealthy approach. You can stay back from the fish, make that cast further across the stream, and it's gonna allow those flies to run almost independent of each other, even if they're in different flows. It's a great technique, especially if you're fishing pressured waters. Now I know you love to fly fish in the fall, but don't forget, like this video so I can make more videos like this. Now let's get back to some more tips. In the fall, when it comes to fly selection, I like to lean small. Now what does that mean? Now remember, we're just coming out of the summer, so think about some of our favorite summer flies that we probably fish. I'm talking about ants, beetles, crayfish. They will still work. But now we're also starting to get more insects hatching. I'm thinking stuff like blooming olives, size 16, 18, size 20, and even a really prolific caddis, which is called the October caddis. Now that we start to have some bugs moving, fish are going to notice them. So start to integrate more nymphs into your fall fishing. You can start ramping up the sizes. Occasionally throw a stonefly nymph. See if a fish is willing to take it. throw some of those October caddis, both dry fly if you see fish on top, and also something like a pupa or a larva. And then most importantly, stick with some of those smaller patterns that work for you in the summer. Some of my favorite patterns as the summer transitions into the fall include smaller flies like an improved zebra midge or even a foam midge. It's one of my favorite dry flies out there. But then when we have blueing olives, throw something like a France fly. It's a killer blueing olive imitation that works year round, especially in the fall. In the fall, you gotta throw meat. And no, I'm not saying go to your local grocery store and buy a steak. I mean, throw some streamers because fish are starting to get aggressive. Why are they starting to get aggressive? Well, brown trout and brook trout, they spawn in the fall. Whenever they spawn, they get both aggressive and a little territorial. So they are definitely likely to hit a streamer as it's kind of buzzing through their area. So throw streamers that have rubber legs, have a lot of movement like an articulation, or push a lot of water. They move a lot of water. There is no doubt about it. My favorite articulated streamer is Cammisa's double play. This has caught fish for me all around the world, but you can also vary it if you're into fly tying. I mean, you can add some rubber legs. You can vary the size of that sculpin head. Go with a large, go with a small. Don't put a sculpin head on it. Maybe tie it with some deer hair and fish it off a sinking line. You have lots of different options in the fall, but by all means, throw those streamers. Take advantage of those fish being very aggressive. I know you're into social media, and you better be using hashtag Trout and Feather whenever you're posting, because I want to see the flies you're tying, the fish you're catching, the locations where you're fishing. I want to be a part of all that experience, so let's connect together on social media. You can find Trout and Feather on TikTok, Instagram, I don't know, Facebook, everywhere. If you have a social media account on Pinterest, I am there too. Let's connect, let's share some more, and let's learn together in this wonderful sport of fly fishing. Now it's here where we have to pause and also really just acknowledge that these fish are spawning in the fall. We want to stay away from spawning fish. So be on the lookout for reds. They're spawning beds, especially in gravelly areas like the tailouts of pools or in some gravelly runs. Stay away from those fish, respect them, let them do their thing so we have fish for the future, and go catch the other fish that are feeding on maybe their eggs? Fish eggs in the fall. I mean, you show me a fish, I'm going to show you something that loves to eat eggs, especially in the fall. We have brook trout, brown trout spawning. There are going to be some eggs that make their way downstream. Those fish are going to be waiting to pick them off. It doesn't matter if there's rainbows downstream, other brooks, other brown trouts, they're all going to eat those eggs. I know many people are hesitant when it comes to egg flies. Come on, Tim, those are junk flies. I don't fish junk flies. You're wrong. You are matching the hatch in the fall. So if you don't fish egg flies all year long, that's okay. In the fall, take them out, get them in your box, start to fish those. You're matching the hatch then. Don't hesitate, go with it. Uncle John, come on, I know you're out there. Fish those egg patterns in the fall. Now, which egg patterns should you fish? Well, I have two favorites. The one for the link on the screen right now is to the Ecstasy egg pattern. This is one I like to fish in larger sizes, basically a size 16 up to a size 12. And then whenever I go with smaller sizes, sometimes 16 down to a size 20, I like to use some McFly foam in my egg patterns. Those are really the two materials that I love to use. The colors of the eggs that I like to fish in the fall tend to be those that are a little bit more pale. Pale pink, pale orange, even a pale cream color. I don't like those heavy fluorescent colors in the fall. I stick with those colors when it's a little bit, we'll say higher water. In the spring, a little bit more off color. But in the fall, fish those eggs. Come on, those fish want that protein. Fall is a season of change, so we have to track those changes. How do we do so? Well, it's simple, with a fishing journal. Now, years ago, during my first trip to Montana, my mom bought me this leather-bound journal, and I kept all these notes with my trip with John Dunn. We had a great trip, but I can tell you, I've never looked back over that journal. Not that I don't want to relive it, it's just, I don't know, it's just laborious. So a few years ago, though, I decided I wanted to start tracking where I'm fishing, the flies I'm using, the water flows, the temperatures, all that stuff. So I put together an Excel spreadsheet with all of those as headings, and I started inputting all of my information into this. And it was really eye-opening, because what I started to realize was that every, we'll say April 15th, I fished the same stream in the same section, using the same flies, catching pretty much the same amount of fish. It was like Groundhogs Day. You remember that movie with Bill Murray? It was like every day I was waking up, my alarm was going off, and I was reliving the same fly fishing experiences over and over and over. So not only was I starting to track the changes, but I was also reflecting on my own fly fishing. That Excel spreadsheet, that database, made me start to fish new water. So what did I do? I started fishing new water. It got tough fishing for a while, but then I started experiencing different types of water, different water types, more fishing opportunities. I had to push my own techniques. I became a better fly fisher. But now let's encourage us to think about that journal in the fall. We have changing temperatures, changing water types. I mean, lots of changes going on. Add those changes into this Excel spreadsheet. You can look over it over the next few years and start to see exactly what you should be doing. And don't say it's too late to start. It is never too late to start. Start putting that information in your Excel spreadsheet like now. Start inputting it. After 2 or 3 seasons, you'll start to see exactly where you should be fishing and those water types. Now, what should it look like? Simple. Send me an email. My email is on the screen right now, and I will share my Excel spreadsheet with all of you so you have all of the same columns that I have. No, I will not be sharing my Excel spreadsheet that has all of my information in. Don't email me for that one. I'm giving you the blank one. You should know better. Once you get this Excel spreadsheet, share it back with me, comment on this video. What other columns should I have that I've left out over the years? Because I'm still constantly adding to mine, inputting all types of information just so I can look back and I can track it. And the nice thing about Excel is I can quickly look down the date, see where I fished in the fall, in October, mid-October, see what the water temperatures are, and that will help me make better decisions for the future. The fall is one of my favorite times of the year to go fly fishing, and I hope it becomes one of yours too. But keep in mind, it's a season of change. Be ready for those changing temperatures. Dress in layers, and if you check the description of this video, you'll see some of the favorite clothing that I wear whenever I'm on the water in the fall. I also will always have a raincoat packed either in my vest or in a backpack because you never know what's going to happen and you don't want to get caught and get wet. And finally, take a second to admire all things glorious with those fall colors. I'm talking about the leaves, the fish, I don't know, whatever else is just beautiful out there, but so many of us, including me, just constantly fish, fish, fish. But that fall is that one time that you gotta just take an extra second, take a breath, look around, and just enjoy everything going on while you're out in the water. I don't care what time of the year you're going fly fishing, there is one fly that should always be in your box. Come on, it's this one right here. Click this link. You can thank me later.